Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's going on, everybody? Here we are. Here we are. Here we are. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? Just make sure the setup is cool here. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? I see we got some people in here already, so let's wait for everybody to come on in, and then we'll get it started. Let's wait for more people to come on in, and we will get it started today. Let's just wait a little bit longer. I see some people are coming in now. So let's give everybody a chance to catch up to this live here. Okay, how you guys doing? How you guys doing? How you guys doing? Today should be a fun live. Today should be a fun live. So let's see how it's going. Let's see how it's going. Okay, welcome in from Arizona. How you guys doing? Hey Clark, how you doing? How you doing? Hey, what's going on? What's going on? How you guys doing? Serge Ibaka is not coming back. like I think everybody should just forget about that. Serge Ibaka is not coming back. Serge Ibaka is not coming back. Hey, appreciate that, man. Hey, appreciate that. Yeah, I support the Clippers. I like the Clippers. Hey, how you doing? Welcome in from Canada. Lorenzo, how you doing? Exactly. Yeah, I think this is one of the reasons why I'm happy that they were able to go out there and sign DeMarcus Cousins. So it was a good move, definitely by them. It was definitely a good move by the coaching staff to go out there and sign DeMarcus Cousins. Yes, game day, game day. Yeah, just waiting for everybody to come on in before we get it started. So we do our customary lives. Okay, Marco just again. Thank you for that, Marco. Also say what's good to Marco. Marco's in here. He just posted that there. So again, if you guys want to live chat during these games, if you guys want to live chat tonight, make sure you guys go ahead and sign up to Dreamerspro Max. You can talk about basketball and do all of that stuff there. So sign up to it. Marco just posted the link at the top of the comment section, so you guys can do that and get 7 days of access. So if you guys want to live chat during the game, make sure you do it. And please, if you are going to sign up, try to sign up a little bit of try to sign up before the game starts. So if the game starts at 9, don't sign up at 8:59. So just sign up on time, so you give yourself a chance to get in there. How you guys doing? We appreciate that. We appreciate that. Unleash Bev and man. Yeah, we're gonna have to see what the coaching staff is going to do. Today I'm not going to be focusing on lineups because I got to go out there and see what they're going to do. It's kind of hard to criticize the lineup that they started the game with, given the fact that it was such a close game. So we're going to get into the game. Let's just allow everybody to kind of come into this live here. Again, make sure you guys hit the likes so more people get notified. Make sure you get the notifications out there. So make sure you guys hit the likes as you come in so more people get notified. Yeah. Yeah, I heard Michael Conley is going to be out. I heard Michael Conley will be out or whatever it is, but trust me, I don't think I think even if Mike Conley plays, I don't think a series is going to come down to Mike Conley. I think there's so many other moving parts in this series that I'm not too focused on that. I mean, Mike Conley is not playing. Okay, Serge Ibaka is not playing. We don't even have the starting center starting. So, what does it mean? I think it's part of the playoffs, and some people are going to be healthy and some are not. It's just part of the playoffs. Look at the Brooklyn Nets. They don't have James Harden, but they're just trucking on. So if James Harden doesn't play, nobody's going to take it any easier on them. If they lose, they're going to say you still had Kevin Durant. You still got, the Utah Jazz is still a very good team. So, you know what I'm saying? They're still a very good team. They're still a very good team. Yeah, I think the Clippers can win the title without. I think the Clippers can win the title without Serge Ibaka. They pretty much played this entire season without him, or the majority of the games without him. So I don't think it's so much of a big deal. Make sure you guys hit the like, guys, so more notifications go out. While we wait for everyone, just make sure you guys go ahead and do that. Okay. So yeah, let's just wait a little bit longer. Let's give it like another 30 seconds or so. No, let's give it like another minute or so before we get started. So we allow everybody to kind of catch up to what we're doing, and then we'll get it started there. So let's just do that. PG hate is lame. Yeah, I know, man. I know. It's pretty funny, but do you go daily? It depends on where you are. It really depends where you are, where you're seeing. 1:30 your time could be 1:30. I don't know if that's the East Coast or what. It depends really where you guys are. People are tuning in from so many different parts. Hey, how you doing, Rambo man? How you doing? So people are tuning in from so many different parts of the world. So it really all depends. People are catching this thing early in the morning. Some people are it's up late. Some people it's in the evening. Some people it's in the afternoon. It all really depends. Yeah, the whole PG thing. I think PG's like I think Paul George has turned into like the Kevin Love, man. He's like the Kevin Love of the Clippers. Every whenever whenever something goes wrong, he's the one to blame. And unfortunately for Paul George, he's a little bit too honest. So whenever they ask him a question, he usually comes out there and answers them straight up. I think that's the United Arab Emirates, if I'm looking at that flag. Yeah, the Suns look good. The Suns look good. Yeah, PG, but that's just part of the game. So we're just gonna have to deal with that. Anyway, before we get started, I need you guys to get the likes up. A lot of you guys like just make sure you go ahead and get the likes because it's not really a big deal to do that if you want people to be notified. Yeah, he put his foot in his mouth. No, I don't think he puts his foot in his mouth. I think he's just honest. And sometimes honesty kind of hurts you because your honesty, they can use it against you depending on the situation. So it is what it is. Okay, this is Kuwait. Okay, got you, got you. Okay, anyway. So let's get into this live. Okay, so real quick, again, if you guys want a live chat, Marco's posted a link to the live chat at the top of the what do you call it? The comment section there. So you guys can definitely live chat with us on Dreamerspro Max. So you guys can do that. Anyway, let me get into this live. Oh, also, real quick, before we get started, we also have 2 videos that are coming out on the channel today. 2 big videos that are coming out on the channel today. So be on the lookout for these videos. You guys definitely don't want to miss these videos. They're coming out later on today. So stay tuned to that. Has nothing really to do with the game, but I think there's some videos that you guys are definitely going to enjoy. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, let me get into this video here. So let me get into the let me get into the game. So going into game 1, I think I thought that the 2 biggest factors going into the game, given the fact that we didn't know the type of lineup the Clippers are going to use, I think we had an idea. I think we weren't 100% sure if Mike Conley wasn't going to play, so we didn't know the lineups, right? So we didn't know those things. But the things that we did know were, number one, we knew that there were going to be 2 major factors in that game, at least to start the game. It was going to be a game of rest versus rust. That was going to be a big thing because the Clippers, I think, had played 8 games over an 18-day span. They were playing pretty much every other night, it seemed like, in that first round. They went to a they went to a 7th game in that first round. Now, should they have avoided a situation like that if they could have? Absolutely, but those were the cards that they were dealt. So they came out of a long, grueling 7-game series with a lot of travel and a lot of different emotions and all of that. I remember Kenny Smith saying that, listen, he was very surprised given how the Clippers played in game 1, talking about the Utah Jazz. He says because game 7s are very emotional, they take a lot out of you. I think Kenny Smith had been a part of a game 7 before in the past, so he said he was surprised that they didn't have an emotional letdown, that they went into that game with a lot of energy, a lot of focus, and they just pretty much hung in that entire time and played pretty well. Obviously, if you look at the Utah Jazz side, the Utah Jazz were very rusty. There was just no 2 ways to say it. That was one of the reasons why you saw them miss 20 consecutive shots in the first half. If you miss 20 consecutive shots in a half in your home arena, it means that you don't have a rhythm. I think by rust, it means they were just out of a rhythm. They hadn't played in an NBA game, and I think in over 5 days or so. So when teams take off and they don't play, when teams don't play for a long period of time, they're going to be rusty. We saw it in the regular season. We saw when Kawhi would miss some games, he would come back. He'll be a little bit rusty. It'll take him a game or 2 to kind of get his to get back into the groove of things. So I thought that definitely played a role. So that was one of the things that I also noticed. The Clippers did come out with a lot of energy to start game 1, and I think a lot of that they were just running on fumes and adrenaline. I think that's what they came out with in the first half. And I also got to hand it to the Clippers that, listen, they also played pretty well in the first half. They executed and they played some good defense. Now, some people may say, well, the Clippers got lucky because the Utah Jazz missed 20 straight shots, but the Clippers were also playing defense. What was the last team you ever saw that hit 20 straight shots in a row? What was the last team? If a team hits 20 straight shots in a row, how many shots are they going to hit in a game? Right. So they will see. Okay, ESPN just notified me that Mike Conley is going to be ruled out. I just saw the notification flash on my screen there, so he's not going to be there. So I thought the Clippers played pretty well in the first half. Also, Luke Kennard gave them some good minutes in that first half. I was listening to some of the things that Ty Lue said, and he said at the beginning of series, we like to play different people. I'm talking about like in game 1, game 2, to see who will be able to play in this particular series. In game 1, in the first half, Luke Kennard scored 11 points. He gave them a real push off the bench, and the Clippers had a very balanced attack in the first half. It wasn't one guy going off. Luke Kennard was the highest scorer for the Clippers in the first half, but it was a balanced attack. Paul George scored a little bit. Nicholas Batum scored a little bit. Kawhi Leonard scored a little bit. So they kind of mixed it up in the first half, right? So that was pretty good, and they had a balanced attack, and they also defended. Now, Donovan Mitchell, on the other hand, for the Utah Jazz, he basically kept them in that game in the first half with his scoring because he scored 13 points in the first half. But in the second half, I think what happened was the Utah Jazz finally settled down. They settled in. They were at home, and I think they kind of got they lathered up a sweat, and they were able to kind of settle down. Then they got into what they wanted to do. I think in the second half, what we noticed were a couple of things. In the second half, the Utah Jazz decided to do a few things. They noticed that the Clippers were scoring a little bit easy. They noticed that the Clippers were able to get into what they were trying to do with a considerable amount of ease. So what they decided to do in that second half was, number one, they came out with a lot of energy. If you saw them, they were like hellacious on defense. But I've watched this Utah Jazz team play against the Clippers in the regular season. That's how they play them in those games. They're like they play at a frantic pace, and they play like that all game. And ultimately, what happens is they overwhelm you in a game like that. So in the second half, they came out with a lot more energy, and they started to pressure the ball. In certain times, they were playing a full court press, right? They made it difficult for the Clippers to just kind of make some passes. They were able to steal. I think they stole some. They were able to get some steals on some inbound plays. So they really turned it up defensively in the second half, and I think it caught the Clippers off guard. And Donovan Mitchell just started to go off. He scored 16 points in that third quarter. Really, that was when they were able to make some separation. He scored. Kawhi Leonard only took 6 shots in that third. He made 3 of them, and Paul George picked up 2 personal fouls. So he had to sit a lot of that third quarter, and a lot of his minutes were up and down. Another thing that's worth noticing when I talk about fatigue playing a role, if you go back and look at the box score from game 1, usually the Clippers, their main players, their starting players, usually would play upwards of 38 to 39 to 40 minutes per game. Most of them didn't even get to 37 minutes. A lot of those guys didn't play a lot of minutes because I think a lot of them were gassed. I think Donovan Mitchell, from the beginning of the second half, was the difference in that game, right? Because he scored 13. He scored, Not 13. He scored 16 points in that third quarter. And I think Paul George and Kawhi Leonard came on a little bit too late. Going into the fourth quarter, he just kept piling on. Going into that fourth quarter, he scored an additional 16 points. Paul George managed to score 13 points. He was able to get into a rhythm, but by that time, it was a little bit too late. And I think the Clippers, they played well. They fought hard. And given the fact that they didn't execute in that last play, because I think Ty Lue didn't want to call a timeout because he didn't want to play against a set defense, and they didn't get the best shot possible. But if I'm the Clippers and I come into a hostile environment like playing in Utah, and I'm able to come within one shot of tying the game and going into overtime, I wouldn't feel too bad. Now, obviously, they say there are no moral victories, but in a situation like this, you didn't get beat badly. That's why you see a lot of people the following day after the Clippers lost. I think on what day was it? They played on Tuesday. So on Wednesday they came back. A lot of people were not beating them up. Because how can you beat up a team that lost by only 3 points on the road after coming off of a 7-game series? You can't criticize that team. So what they had to do was go to the usual suspect as usual, Paul George. Paul George is the reason they lost. Now, let me say this. Do you think Paul George would have been as heavily criticized as he was if he played the exact same way, but the Clippers won that game by 1 point? Absolutely not. But you need somebody. Somebody needs to be the scapegoat. And in this case, it's always going to be Paul George, right? So Paul George, he didn't shoot very well. But to be quite honest with you, Kawhi Leonard scoring 23 points in a game is not enough. Paul George scoring 20 points in a game is not enough, right? So that's just being balanced, being a little bit balanced about this. Now I've kind of given you guys a recap of game one. Let's talk about tonight. Hey, Candace, how you guys doing? How all you guys doing? I see you guys in there. Shannon Sharp is one of the biggest haters here. Yeah, Shannon Sharp is just doing his thing, man. Shannon Sharp is just doing his thing. I'm not really paying too much attention to them. He's doing his thing. Anyway, so let me get into this here. Going into tonight's game, I think PG needs to come out and be a bit more decisive, especially on the offensive side of the floor. What do I mean by that? If you're going to make up your mind to score, score. Make up your mind quickly in the shot clock. Don't hold the ball and start dribbling and you don't know really what you want to do. You don't know if you want to pass. You don't know if you want to shoot. You don't know exactly what type of shot you want to take. Be decisive early and often. That's the first thing. The second thing, still talking about Paul George. I think Paul George needs to decide how he wants to attack Rudy Gobert. I've noticed that Rudy Gobert in those pick and roll, Rudy's dropping back. And Ty Lue said it after the game or later. He said that Paul George needs to go for that mid-range. If he's going to drop, go for the mid-range jump shot. You're getting closer to the basket, so the percentage of you making that shot should be easier. If he drops, take the jump shot. But if you have the opportunity to get to the rim, get to the rim. If I had to kind of put it in order of priority, I would prioritize getting to the rim first, then going up for the mid-range jump shot. I would not settle for too many threes. Some of you say, but why get to the rim? I think a lot of people say, attack the basket, attack the basket, attack the basket. But a lot of, I think some people don't know the philosophy behind that. Number one, when you're always attacking the basket, few things are happening. Number one, you're putting their bigs in jeopardy, putting them into foul trouble. And number two, you collapse the defense when you attack the basket, and it can allow you to get to those open spots to hit some open shooters, right? Because somebody has to commit, especially if you're putting a lot of trouble, if you're putting a lot of pressure on them. But most importantly, you want to draw those fouls, because I think the Clippers do themselves a major service if they can get Rudy Gobert off the floor. And I think even better is when he's off the floor and they still continue to go small. Another thing that helps is if he's in foul trouble, then you notice that Ty Lue usually brings in Ivica Zubac to kind of secure those rebounds, right? So Ivica Zubac is not out there fighting with Rudy Gobert. So that's another thing I think we need to focus on Paul George. I think he shouldn't take too many threes. He shouldn't fall in love with the three. Now, he shot over 40% from the three. So this is just what I think, right? I'm not the coach there. We're just kind of talking about it, and I'm giving you my take on things. I think Paul George should take every open three that he gets. If he has a wide open three, take it. If he gets a clean look, take it, because he's a 40% three-point shooter. And also you want to keep the defenders guessing. You don't want them to know exactly everything you're going to do. Otherwise, you're going to become too much of a one or two dimensional type of score. So I think he needs to be able to kind of get to the basket, get to the mid-range, and hit three. So those are my general recommendations for Paul George. Now, somebody just made the statement that said that, listen, Paul George has been driving all season long, and he just doesn't get enough respect from the referees. We've done some videos on this where we went into the advanced analytics. And the fact of the matter is this: Paul George, for whatever reason, for the same amount of drives as other people going to the basket, attempting shots between 0 and 10 feet of the basket, he just, for whatever reason, consistently gets less foul calls. It's just that simple. We've already done videos addressing this with the advanced analytics. We've done lives on this. For whatever reason, Paul George doesn't get the benefit of the doubt that James Harden will get going to the basket, for whatever reason. I don't know what that reason is, right? So there's that aspect to it. A lot of times Paul George is driving and he's getting contact and he's not getting those calls. But Ty Lue said that that's something that the Clippers are going to have to play through anyway. So as they say, tough luck. You just got to play through it. So let me see how many. I see a lot of people are dropping a lot of comments in here, a lot of comments in there. So we appreciate we appreciate the interaction. So that's what I said about Paul George. I think now let's move over to Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris Sr., who's my favorite Clipper. I think some people kind of got it confused. I said Marcus Morris is my favorite Clipper. I didn't say he's my favorite player. He's my favorite Clipper. Now, I think that Marcus Morris Sr. needs to knock down his open threes, because I've realized that Marcus Morris hurts the team when he's not knocking down shots. It's just that simple. When he's not knocking down shots, he's hurting the team. I need him to hit his shots, because when he does that, he keeps the spacing on the floor. Now, I like the fact that he plays with a lot of intensity on defense, and I think he needs to continue to do that. But I think he needs to be more reliable, especially as a scorer. He needs to hit his shots. Another thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Clippers' pick and roll defense, or lack thereof. Ladies and gentlemen, Luka Doncic and Donovan Mitchell are using the same exact plays. The Utah Jazz studied the Clippers and Mavs series. They saw exactly what works in that series. If you look at Donovan Mitchell and you look at him scoring, he is not scoring off of the dribble, meaning he's not breaking down individual defenders. He's not. He's not scoring. He's not scoring like, for example, on Kawhi Leonard off the dribble. He's not doing that. The Clippers have a lot of skilled defenders. In order for him to score, he needs pick and rolls and screens. He needs picks and screens. He needs to get the primary defender off of him. He's going to search for the weakest link. However, here's the problem. And I think the Clippers need to do a better job guarding this pick and roll. If you go back and look at the game and you look at how Donovan Mitchell's getting a lot of his shots, those threes that he got are coming off of screens. Okay? He's coming off of a screen and he's getting a clean look at the three. But on the pick and roll specifically, when he gets into the pick and roll, whoever is the man that's guarding him initially before he gets into the pick and roll, the guy that goes under is showing very, very hard. The problem is the initial defender who's supposed to be guarding him is not getting square enough on the ball quick enough. He's not recovering fast enough because the guy that's dropping back is sucking him into the paint. So they need to find a better way to get more square on the ball after he goes around the pick and roll. They just need to do it. Can any other player than Kawhi Leonard step up on? It's not about Kawhi Leonard stepping up on defense. When Kawhi Leonard, if you see Kawhi Leonard coming up the court, if you see like Luka Doncic coming up the court and you see Kawhi Leonard on him, for that moment, Kawhi Leonard is guarding him. But if they call a pick, the primary defender on Luka is no longer Kawhi. So you can't have Kawhi on him if he's not on him. The Clippers figured out a way to kind of get the primary defender back on the ball by showing harder on those pick and rolls. For whatever reason, they were not doing that. If you look at Donovan Mitchell, he was turning the corner and the primary defender was not recovering. He was not recovering. And if you look at him, once he gets that line to the basket, you're not going to be able to get in front of him again, especially with his athleticism and his wingspan. Once he starts going around you and he starts going up for a layup, you're not going to be able to bother his shot. Just go look back at the tape. Look at how he was scoring. There's no way you could stop him. So they need to figure out a way to guard that a little bit better, because they're going to keep running that play. It's the exact same thing that the Dallas Mavericks did. So I just wanted to focus on that. I wanted to focus on that for a little bit. Let me talk about Kawhi Leonard. I think Kawhi Leonard is going to need to be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive side of the floor. And I'm very, 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 very sure that he will. There's no one individual defender that the Utah Jazz have that's going to stop Kawhi Leonard in a series. I'm sorry. There's just there is none. I don't care. Royce O'Neal, all of these guys, none of them. Those guys are not the answer. If those are the guys that you're hoping that are going to stop Kawhi Leonard, it's not going to happen. Kawhi Leonard usually is getting doubled. If they're playing him one-on-one, they usually have a help defender. Usually when he's facing the basket, he's seeing at least 3 Utah Jazz players looking in his direction. They have nobody that can play him straight up man-to-man defense. How do I know this? Because I saw Kawhi Leonard play against the Philadelphia 76ers. Do you guys forget that Philadelphia 76ers team had Ben Simmons and Jimmy Butler? Y'all know that Ben Simmons and Jimmy Butler are some of the best two-way players in basketball, especially Jimmy Butler. They couldn't stop Kawhi Leonard. So what makes people feel so confident that Royce O'Neal and these guys are going to be the ones to it's just not going to happen. So I expect Kawhi Leonard to have a better game, and the Utah Jazz are not the Detroit Pistons, right? They're not the 2001, 2003, 2002 Detroit Pistons. They don't have that type of defense. Now, let me talk about Donovan Mitchell. Going into this game, I expect Donovan Mitchell to have another big game. I expect him to have another big game. No one should be surprised, given the fact of how the Clippers guard the pick and roll and how talented Donovan Mitchell is, how much he's improved. He has Coach Dwayne Wade on his sideline giving him advice during the game. I think Donovan Mitchell is going to score at least 35 points today in this game. At least 35. Don't be surprised if he goes for 40 again. The Clippers have shown that they can play great defense and still let an individual offensive player average like 35 points in a series. It's the same thing they did with Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic averaged 35 points in the first round. That was against the Clippers, right? And now, obviously, Luka Doncic is a much more lethal all-around basketball player than Donovan Mitchell. I don't think anyone here is going to say then Donovan Mitchell is better than Luka Doncic. There's no way. I'm sorry. Like, Donovan Mitchell is the man. Luka Doncic is just better. Period. End of story. Period. End of story. Like, let's just stop it. Like, so I don't expect him to, go out there and average 40, but I expect him to have at least 35 points this game. At least 35 points this game. So no one should be surprised at that, because the Utah Jazz coaching staff, they know how to put him in the right spots to be successful. They really do. Like, they understand where to put him to be successful on the floor, and they've done a fantastic job. They've done a fantastic job with him. And also, I expect his supporting cast, I'm talking about the Utah Jazz now, the other players, these guys, I expect them to play better as well. Like, Utah is a good team. They were the number one team in the NBA for a reason, right? They're a very good team. So they lost game 1 to the Memphis Grizzlies. Donovan Mitchell came back. They beat them 4 straight. So the Utah Jazz are a very, 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 very good team. And I think both of these teams are evenly matched, to be quite honest with you. That's why I said going into this series, I think it's going to be a 7-game series, because Utah is just a very good team. This is just my opinion. Now, I could be wrong, but this is what I believe. Now, let me get into the team let me kind of get into the team comparisons. And let me kind of do a breakdown of these different teams. Again, for some of the people that probably missed the live or whatever it is, let me get into the team comparisons. PG needs to step up. He can't be selling. I totally agree. I said it before. I don't know if you just came in here, but I definitely think he should. I think definitely Paul George needs to step up for real. And it's a good thing you're bringing him up. If I had to give Paul George a point expectation, I would say I would like to see 26 points from Paul George tonight. I think 26 is a reasonable expectation, given the way the Clippers offense is predicated on ball movement and player movement. It's a kind of equal opportunity offense, but they usually run a lot of set plays for some of their star players. I think Paul George needs to get like 26 points today. If he gets 26 points, I think that's enough. I don't think you need 30, 35 or whatever it is. I expect Kawhi Leonard to score like 35 points this game, because Kawhi Leonard is Kawhi Leonard. So Kawhi Leonard is better than Paul George and Donovan Mitchell. I think I saw somewhere, was it on ESPN today or somewhere I saw that they asked who is the best player in this series again. And I feel like it happens every series. And it only happens with Kawhi Leonard because they have no respect for Kawhi. This is why. How is it that we keep asking this question? That now first with the first round, was Luka better than Kawhi? Okay, we finished that series. Now it's Donovan Mitchell better than Kawhi. If the Clippers somehow manage to make it out of this series and they go play the Phoenix Suns, the next is Devin Booker the better player in this? Like, I feel like that's just been the kind of way that the media likes to kind of do their stuff. But it is what it is, and that's totally fine. Anyway, let me get into the team comparison and the team stats here. So as I said, the Utah Jazz are the number 4 team in offense, so it should come as no surprise that they can score the ball. They're as far as points per game, they're the number 8 team in shot blocks per game. You just saw Rudy Gobert won his 3rd defensive player of the year. He's no joke. right? So they're number 8. They're the number 8 team in blocks per game. They're the number 1 rebounding team in the NBA. That is very important. They're the number 1 rebounding team. However, they're the number 16 team in field goal shooting percentage. Number 16. So they're not the most efficient team in the NBA. They're in the mid. They're a middle of the pack kind of team, right? They're middle of the pack kind of team. Now they do shoot a lot of threes. So if you're shooting a lot of threes and you make a good amount of them, then is going to inflate your overall scoring while your overall field goal percentage is not very high. One of the reasons you saw James Harden was able to score so many points, but he's not the most efficient player in the NBA because he was attempting like 13 3-pointers per game. If you go back and look at James Harden, he was attempting about 13 3-point shots per game, right? So it's kind of good to put that in perspective. They're the number 8 free throw shooting team in the NBA, so they're a decent free throw shooting team. You saw Rudy Gobert step up to the free throw line, hit some big free throws, so they're a very good free throw shooting team. And they beat their opponents with an average of 8 points per game. That's a league average because they play every team in the NBA. So on average, they were beating teams by at least 8 points per game. Now, if we go over to the Clippers are the number 10 offense in the NBA as far as scoring per game. They're the number 29 shot blocking team. Now, I wouldn't be surprised because Serge Ibaka was out and all of these different stuff. They're the number 17th team in rebounding. So the Utah Jazz are a better rebounding team. However, the Clippers are much more offensive, much more efficient team on the offensive side of the floor. The Utah Jazz are number 16. The Clippers are number 5. So they're the 5th most offensive team, efficient team on the offensive side of the floor. They have the number 8 rated defense in the NBA, which is also a top 10 defense, but they're the number 1 3-point shooting team in the NBA. The Utah Jazz shoot more threes. The Clippers shoot slightly less and make more. So that's something else to point out. And the Clippers beat teams on average at about 6 points per game. So here's my verdict. Here's my verdict of what I believe is going to happen tonight, right? This is my verdict. I'm sure this is the part that a lot of you guys have been waiting for. I'm sure this is the reason a lot of you guys tuned in. Don't play Patrick Beverley. Don't play Patrick Beverley at all. Listen, I'm not really sure what the Clippers are going to do with Patrick Beverley because if they don't play Patrick Beverley a lot, it's going to be interesting what Patrick Beverley's future is going to be with this team. It's actually quite interesting. Now, if the Clippers somehow manage to make it out of this series, and they do end up playing the Phoenix Suns, who I expect to make it to the Western Conference Finals, you need a player like Patrick Beverley on the court. You just need that, right? For a player like Chris Paul and all that, you're going to need a Patrick Beverley on the floor, right? So I would like him in that series. But is Patrick Beverley going to get a whole lot of run this series? I don't know. Again, there's a trade-off that you have with Patrick Beverley and Reggie Jackson. Patrick Beverley is definitely going to play better defense. You cannot take advantage of him as much, especially on those pick and rolls, especially when they switch. You cannot. However, he's not the scorer that Reggie Jackson is. And I think Ty Lue is kind of weighing the pros and the cons. He's like, I think Ty Lue prefers more spacing on the floor with Reggie Jackson, and he's kind of willing to live with some of his deficiencies on the defensive side of the floor. This is just my opinion, right? I think that's the decision that the coaching staff of the Clippers have been making, with him. So here's my verdict. I think, listen, going into this game, I think the Clippers are going to have to beat this team. The Utah Jazz are a very good team. You got to beat them. It's not like, okay, we can half step and kind of, no. You got to beat this team, and you got to beat them down. Like, you got to beat them, and it needs to be decisive. You can't half step with this team. You can't say, oh, okay, well, let's see how it goes. Let's kind of like, we're going to get a 10-point lead and everything will be fine. We just we can just coast. No. You got to keep your foot on the gas pedal of this Utah Jazz team. They are a very dangerous team. They play with a lot of energy. They shoot a lot of threes. They're very confident. They're going to get into you. Something I heard Ty Lue talk about, was it yesterday after him speaking to the media? He said the Clippers need to protect, they need to do a better job of protecting their own airspace, meaning they were allowing the Utah Jazz players to crowd them too much. They were crowding them. So they need to do a better job with that. So you're going to have to beat the Utah Jazz. Let me just say that. You're going to have to beat them. You're not just going to like, oh, okay, look cute out there, because they're very talented, very well coached. Now, I think the Clippers are going to win this game. I think the Clippers are going to win this game. I see a lot of people talking about officiating. You can't control the officiating. You just can't. It's just the one thing you have no control over because the officials are a separate entity outside the game that affect the game. You can't affect it unless the league there's nothing you can do about it. You can play your game, but you can't make the officials do what you want them to do. You can't. It's like I watch Formula One a lot, right? You can practice. You can have good team strategy. You can have your tire strategy and all of the different stuff, right? You can practice over the weekend before the big race. But if it rains, like you have no control over that. Whether the weather changes or the wind starts blowing really hard and affects your car, you have no control over that. So I don't think the Clippers need to go into this game thinking about the referees. You have no control over it. It's one of those things that you just got to deal with and play through it. If you get calls, fantastic. If you don't, even if you don't get the call, it's not like I said they're going to go back and relitigate a game and say, oh, by the way, we made so many missed calls. Let me go back and give you guys those points and you won the game. You have no control over that. So don't even waste your time focusing on the referees. It's a waste of your energy, waste of your time. So don't focus on that. So I think the Clippers are going to win this game for a few reasons. Let me drink some water. I think the Clippers are going to win this game for a few reasons. First reason is this. I think the Clippers are going to make some good adjustments. Ty Lue has shown me, at least in the first round, that him and his coaching staff understand how to make adjustments. I'll give you guys an example. Yesterday, the Clippers released a video on their channel, on their YouTube channel, like a 24-minute video. And basically, this video is like, it just chronicles what they went through in the first round. And there was a part in the video where Ty Lue, after he decided to go small in game 4 and game 3 and 4, Ty Lue says in the video, he said, now, I think they're going to go big. Knowing Rick the way I know him, he's probably going to play Boban. Did you hear what I just said? Ty Lue was aware of the fact that the counter that the Dallas Mavericks were going to make, talking about the Dallas Mavericks coaching staff, he felt that they were going to go big, so he wasn't even surprised. I say all of this to say this. I think that the Clippers coaching staff have shown that they're ready to make adjustments, and I think they'll be fine. And I also noticed that they're good at cleaning up their mistakes. This seems to be a team, for whatever reason, that seems to study film very well. They know the things that they do wrong, and then they go out there and they change them. Now, some people say, well, if they were so good at making adjustments, how come Luka Doncic averaged 35 points, in that series? I think when it was time to kind of lock down and get their best defender on Luka Doncic, they were able to engineer a way to get Kawhi Leonard on him. When it was time, they were able to figure out a way to get Kawhi Leonard on Luka Doncic. In the most important moments, Kawhi was playing defense on Luka Doncic, if you guys go back and look. He didn't play defense on him exclusively for the entire game, but at the critical moments, he had Kawhi Leonard on him. And Kawhi Leonard played the best defense anybody on the planet Earth can play on Luka Doncic. There's nobody better at playing defense on star players than Kawhi Leonard when he puts his mind to it, right? So I trust the Clippers coaching staff to make the right adjustments going into game 2. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to say that I think is going to work in the favor of the Clippers is this. The Clippers are going to be better rested. Some people will say, well, how are they going to be better rested? They still have the same amount of days in between game 1 and game 2 as they had between game 7 and game 1. So how are they going to be more rested? I think for this fundamental reason. After they won game 7 in LA, they had to travel to Dallas, right? They had to travel. Traveling takes a toll out on you. I don't care if you're riding in a private jet next to Jeff Bezos. You will get tired traveling. Traveling is not a fun thing to do. It is taxing on your body. You're not going to sleep as well as you would normally sleep on a bed. For one, I don't give a damn what you say. You say, oh, they have a private jet they can sleep in. You're sleeping on a private jet and the bed is moving. What bed have you ever slept in that moves? So it's not the same thing. The Clippers don't have to travel. That's the first thing. They landed in Utah, I believe, on Sunday. They're going to stay in Utah. They stayed overnight. They were able to sleep in a hotel. So the stress of actually having to travel is not going to be on their body. I think all they're going to do is work on some film, maybe run through 1 or 2 plays, get a lot of rest, get a lot of, just make sure. Yeah, waterbed, but a waterbed is not a bed. That's like a waterbed. I've been on a water bed. I don't think any series like you're gonna have a water bed in your house forever. No, I don't think a water bed is a real bed. So I think they're going to be more rested. I expect the Clippers to come out with a little bit more energy to open the game because they better. Because the Utah Jazz, that is how they play anyway. The Utah Jazz play with a lot of energy anyway. So I expect them to have more energy because they will be a little bit more rested. I think the Clippers need to match their energy to start the game all the way to finish the game. They will need to take care of the ball because the Utah Jazz have shown that they're very good at turning you over, especially when they're pressuring the ball. They're very good at that. Royce O'Neal, just 1 second. Let me pull up some of their Utah Jazz players that I saw do that at a high level. Royce O'Neal did that. Joe Ingles is very good at doing that as well. He plays with a lot of toughness. Bogdanovich does that as well. Derek Favors is a great player that comes off the bench. Jordan Clarkson, they did a very good job in Jordan Clarkson. Let me see how many points did Jordan Clarkson and these guys score in the entire game. I think, Jordan Clarkson finished the game with 18 points. That's good off the bench. Rudy Gobert finished with 10 points and 12 rebounds. That was good. And Bogdanovich played very well. He had 12 points, but Royce O'Neal had 8 points. Joe Ingles only had 8 points. Now, Shannon Sharp made a very good observation. However, it wasn't complete. He said the Utah Jazz key players did not play very well. So you expect them to shoot such a percentage at home again. And it's a fair point because they didn't shoot the ball very well. My question is, you also got to examine both sides. Shannon Sharp has fallen into the same mistake that he fell into round one and he fell into all season. Always thinking about what he's going to do and not thinking about what his opponent is capable of. All he talked about was what this guy's going to do, what that guy is going to do. Never spent any time focusing on what the other guy is going to do. So if you expect Joe Ingles and these guys to play a little bit better, which I do, the question is, are you telling me at the same time you also expect Paul George to struggle and you also expect Marcus Morris Sr. to struggle, and you also expect Kawhi Leonard to struggle too? Why is it only going to work in favor of your argument, but it's not going to work for the other team? So I think if you have a balanced approach, I think both people are probably going to play well, in my opinion. I think the Utah Jazz are going to have a little bit more of a rhythm, given the fact that they're back into the flow, something that Shaquille O'Neal and these guys said. He said, once you're playing every other night, you're in a flow, you're in a rhythm, you're kind of locked in, you're always kind of like, mentally locked in. But now I think the Clippers, given the fact that they're going to be a little bit more rested, I think is going to help them. So I think it works. I think it works on both sides, to be quite honest with you. I still think it's going to be a close game from beginning to end. I think it's going to be a close game, but I believe that the Clippers will ultimately win this game in the end. Now, obviously, some of that is blind, kind of, I would like to say calculated faith and hope, because I don't know what lineups they're going to run and all of these different stuff. I don't know the adjustments. So, but I do just kind of have this feeling that the Clippers are going to find a way to gut it out and win. One, because they've kind of proven that they can do it. They've done it before, right? They've had their backs against the wall and they've gone out there and won. So I'm going to kind of lean with the Clippers tonight and if they win and then win. Now, if they lose, is it going to be the end of the world? Probably for a lot of people, yes, it's going to be the end of the world. But obviously, I've seen them go through this before when they dropped the first 2 games at home. So I think the Clippers are going to win a close game. I think it's going to be highly contested, and I think it's going to be a very tough series, right? But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if the Utah Jazz go out there and win because they are a very good team, and that's why I think that this series is going to go 7 games. I don't do scores. Somebody asked me I don't do scores, and it's funny. The reason why I don't do scores, I've been watching basketball for a long time. These guys are always wrong. Why would I do a score when I don't know what the score is going to be? Like, I'm not Nostradamus, number one. And number two, even if I predict the score right, so what? Can I predict 2-3 game scores in a row? No, I can't. So even if I'm able to predict the score, what does it mean? I'm some kind of like, oh, wow, this guy, wow, he must really know basketball. No, I don't know the score. And I'll never do a prediction because I thought it was silly. I don't know what the score is going to be. I can tell you who I think is going to win. The score, if I could predict the score, trust me, I'll be working on Wall Street. I would not be wasting my time predicting basketball games. I'll be in Wall Street or in Vegas instead of predicting scores for playoff games. Trust me, these guys cannot predict the score. If they could predict the score, they will be working on Wall Street doing something much more lucrative. So that's just my opinion. No, I predicted the Clippers are going to win. I predicted. I don't know if you just came in late, but I predicted the Clippers are gonna win this game. So anyway, so that's it for today's live, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Also, be on the lookout for the 2 videos that we have coming out today. Another thing I also want to say, if you guys want to live chat during the game tonight, make sure you guys go and sign up to Dreamerspro Max and get 7 days of access. We're going to be live chatting tonight, so you don't want to miss out on that. Once again, thank you guys for being a part of this live, and we definitely catch you guys tomorrow on the recap. Catch you guys later. Peace.